Well, hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode. And today I have a very special guest who has a story that, although it may be a little tough to listen to, it is amazing and there's so much hope inside of it. And her name is Jill Schultz. Welcome, Jill.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Okay, so we all know the name of this podcast is Adult Child Dysfunction. And when I ask, does anybody have a story? People come out of the woodwork. Share your story a little bit, how you got here.
Yeah, so I always like to start by saying, my story, the reason I'm telling it is because I want to open up the conversation for people to be able to freely talk about this, because currently it's not something that people are open about. And so if you're hearing this for the first time, or you're having a memory, or you're coming to the place where you're like, oh my God, this is something that I have to deal with. There are lots of resources on my website for people to get support, because it's very important to me that you're safe and that you're held and that you get to get help if that's something that you need. So my website is jilleschultz.com, and you can see the spelling on the screen, and there's a resources section there, and there's a get help section. So please, please, please reach out if you feel like you need to talk to somebody right now. Um, I was molested when I was around 3 or 4 years old, and I don't remember who did it. None of that matters. I forgave that person a long time ago, which is something in the healing process that we'll talk about being really, really important, is forgiving whoever it was that hurt you. Um, but where my story shifts into a conversation that where people aren't really talking about is because of what somebody taught me to do. I was experimenting innocently and curiously with other children as a child. I was not doing that as an adult. Let me be clear. As a child, I was doing that. And I lived with debilitating shame for 41 years, thinking that I was the only little girl who ever did anything like that. And so God decided that this gets to be my purpose and passion in life. I prayed for my purpose for a very long time. Be careful what you pray for. When they say that, they mean it, because never would I have chosen to be the poster child for this conversation. But I'm really doing this because I want to help collapse time for people, let you know if this is your story, you get to love yourself, you get to forgive yourself, and you get to live a magnificent life. So that's what I'm here to talk about today.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being so vulnerable, because it is difficult, especially for people, like you said, some people are sitting at home when they hear more of the details of your story are going to be like, oh my gosh, that's me. And never would people have imagined that we'd be in a place or in a world where it's okay to say, hey, that was me. I need help.
I need
Um,
help.
we're in a great place right now for that. So
Yeah.
we should all feel blessed and grateful for that.
Mhm.
So what age did this experimentation phase start?
I think, with sexual trauma, you remember and you forget, and you remember and you forget. I think I was probably around, well, I remember in first grade, knowing that it felt good. I wasn't necessarily acting out at that age, but I knew touching myself felt good. And I know a lot of kids experiment with that. So if you were experimenting with masturbation when you were little, that doesn't mean that you were abused. But I specifically remember being in first grade and thinking, yeah, that feels good. And so I think I was probably around 7 when I first started doing that. And that ended when I was 12.
Okay. And so then you just kind of brought your friends into it, like, hey, let's try this or let's do this. And
Yeah, an advanced course of playing doctor, I would say.
right. Which is very normal, which is
Yeah.
the playing
Yes.
doctor is very normal.
Yeah.
But yes, if being
Well, and
on
I
what,
wanted to I want to distinguish. I knew from a very young age how to have sex. Children don't know how to have sex from a very young age. So if you were playing doctor, that's very natural. Children are going to experiment. They're going to, you show me, I'll show you, I'll show you mine if you show me yours. But when a child knows how to have intercourse, that changes the scenario. Somebody has taught the child to do that.
absolutely, absolutely. And then when you said this went on until you were about 12,
Yeah.
and then, so what was your, like, how did all of a sudden, did someone stop you? Did someone catch you? I mean, what are the logistics behind when you slapped yourself in the face and said, okay, this isn't right?
Yeah, and I talk about it because I can freely talk about it because have written a book about it. So
Right.
it's like, it's out there, but an adult caught me in the closet. And I was told that little children go to hell who do that. And
Wow.
so, when that point in your life is, any child, any parent can mess up a child at any age. It could be
Right.
as silly as, we don't talk about money, right? But when that happened, that's when I formed the toxic shame that I lived with. And there's a difference between toxic shame and shame. And toxic shame is that deep embedded shame that, literally will affect you in many, many areas of your life. And the three areas where it affected me was, I had an eating disorder till I was 41 years old. I was bulimic.
Mm.
I wasn't connecting with men. I would walk into a bar, a restaurant, or anywhere, and a man would look at me and I would immediately put my head down because I didn't want him to see me. I thought, if a man can see me, how can he love me? And now, after all the work that I've done, I'm like, how can a man not love me, knowing everything that I have done to heal and make myself whole again? And just, we're perfect the way we are. And then the other area of my life that it affected was in business, and, imposter syndrome, not feeling worthy of success, things like that. So that's the difference between toxic shame and shame, is it really gets in there deep into your soul. And, I had that, I call it my shame cloud. I
Right.
had the dark cloud that followed me everywhere for 41 years. I would go to sleep, it was there. I would wake up, it was there. I like to compare it to Pigpen on Snoopy,
Yeah.
but
That little cloud that, yeah.
that's kind of cute and fun. This was an oppressive shame cloud that literally dominated my life and how I felt about myself.
Right. So, and I was talking to someone the other day about the difference between guilt and shame. And like you say, the difference between shame and toxic shame is huge. But it's
Yeah,
like the difference between guilt and shame, where you feel guilty about things, you feel bad that you did them. But shame is you feel that you are bad
yeah.
physically. It becomes your identity. So yeah, when you live with that toxic shame, it's hard to get over. So what were the steps? I mean, when did you start getting the help?
Yeah, well, I went to therapy for the first time when I was 33, and I'm 56 now.
You don't
So
look it.
thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was 33 when I started going to therapy. And I also was blessed to have found Landmark Education at the same time. I don't know if you know Landmark Education. It's very deep transformational work. And I've done several different programs that have that kind of work involved. And what it is for me, it's, when you're pointing your finger, blaming somebody else for your life, you have three pointing back at yourself.
Right.
So it really is about taking responsibility for your life and not playing victim anymore, not being like, well, I'm this way because so-and-so hurt me. I'm sorry. We get to choose every single day what our life looks like. And you get to decide right now that you're not going to let your trauma own you anymore, because you are not your trauma. So I just went off on a tangent. What was your question?
Oh,
Oh, therapy and all the things.
yeah.
So yeah. I
Well,
found
I
Landmark.
was thinking about I was like, oh, well, that's a good one. I was getting there, but go ahead.
Yeah, I started therapy at 33, and I did Landmark in conjunction with that. And it sped up my therapy by years and years and years and years, because of the deep work that you get to do in those types of programs. So if you are suffering from sexual trauma, like I believe that therapy has a place. I still have a therapist. I've had three in the last 45 years. But I also believe that there are other ways to get healing way more quickly these days. There's lots of different modalities. There's, deep transformational work like I've done. So anyway, that was the beginning of it. And then I saw another therapist when I was 41. And that's when I was like, you are still eating, binging and purging, and you're 41 years old. You need to get a handle on this. And then I continued to do the transformational work. So that's kind of my therapy healing story.
Right. And I think therapy in conjunction with all the other things. I mean, like you said, somebody can go to therapy for all these different things, but it may cause something as simple as, being afraid to fly. So then you take a simple modality, which is tapping or, EFT tapping or something, and all of a sudden they're not afraid to fly anymore. But now let's go back and figure out why. You can fix
Yeah.
like a quick phobia or a fear or a mindset belief pretty quickly, but it's the deep stuff. You have to go deep with that deep stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you wrote a book. Tell us about your book.
I did write a book. Well, God wrote a book. I did not write a book. I did not want to write a book. I had no desire to write a book. I'm not an author. I'm none of those things. But when I surrendered to what God told me my purpose gets to be, I immediately just wanted to get on stages and shout my message from the rooftop because it was so freeing for me to feel like I had finally healed from all of this, that all I wanted to do was help other people get to that same place. And I talked to a friend of mine who is a speaker, and he's like, well, if you want to speak on stages, you got to write a book. And I was like, but you don't understand. I don't want to write a book. So I started sharing my story in the community that I was in, which was the hardcore leadership transformational community, and was just amazed at all that's my story too. That's my story too. So the book, I wrote the first and the last chapter. The rest of the book is other people's stories of either children who were like me that acted out, or people who had been hurt by somebody and how they came to forgive them. My therapist wrote a chapter in the book about how to talk to your children so that they're not targets, or
Mhm.
what to do if your child has been targeted. There's a woman who, it's devastating, but her infant daughter started being molested by the father when she was an infant. And so her story is really about how her court struggle was in getting sole custody of her daughter, because our court systems are messed up when it comes.
Mhm.
And then the end of the book, I really wanted it to be inspiring, and there are stories of people who have been through significant trauma and how now they've created these beautiful lives, because I believe that everything on our heart was given to us by God, and those are ours to have. And so every day we get to create those things for ourselves. Even if you've had bad things happen to you, you get
Mhm.
to have a beautiful life. So that's the book in a nutshell. Very proud. It came out November 1st.
Oh, I'm excited to read it. I've got a stack of all these. I do all these podcasts now, and I'm like
Yeah,
guesting and hosting, and I've got a stack of books, or
of
in my
course.
Audible, I got like 100 books I gotta read, listen
Of
to. But
course.
they're all good. They're all good stories. I mean, that's why we're sitting here today, because
Yeah.
my story is not your story, but there's millions of people out there. I mean, my story is as an adult child, so there's millions of people out there that can resonate with that. So but it's like ultimately at the end of the day, dysfunction is the dysfunction, and the effects as far as what you have to do to heal when anything like that happens as a child is pretty much, it's very similar. It's,
Yeah.
it's, so, you write, you speak. Well, you don't want to write books, which, but get other people to write
I
them. That's,
think there will be a second book, but the second book is going to be about people who have done the healing work and their beautiful stories on the other side of all that when they're manifesting and creating their life. That's
mhm.
what the second book gets to be.
That's amazing. I can't wait. I can't wait. So what do you do now for work, for what do you do in your real life when you're not doing your heart centered
Yeah.
job?
Well, I'm blessed. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I'm
Okay.
blessed at all of the things that I do. I love. I have an event company that I've had for 24 years, and I'm in the wine industry, so that's really fun. And then I do vacation rentals, and then, the book. God has put the other businesses in my life to sustain me until the book came out, and now, I'm really just looking to get my message out there as quickly as possible to help people heal. So that's kind of the focus now.
And that's new. And you said it just came out in November, so you're only
Yeah,
like 2 months in.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
you'll do amazing things. I mean, it's one of those stories that it's like that taboo, nobody wants to breach that. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's, like even I was a teacher and I watched kids, and I remember in first grade I was teaching, and I set my hand on a little girl's shoulder and she wet herself. And I'm like, okay, that girl is clearly being molested. Like,
yeah,
no doubt in my mind. No doubt. 100%. But it's like, oh, well, until she comes forward, it's like, no, get her to trust you, get her to come forward, find a way. But everybody just wants to, woo, that's just shoo it away. And this is reality. This is life. I
yeah.
mean, with things the way they are. I remember, I remember a statement when the COVID first happened, and there was a lockdown, and it was actually a principal that said to me, isn't this amazing during COVID? Like, there's so much more family time, that the cases of child abuse are going down. And I was like, You're a principal. The cases of child abuse were identified in the school.
Oh,
Like, you know
oh,
what I mean? I
yeah.
was like, the cases didn't go down. Now you just have more people at home together. I mean, when I taught first grade, that was the safest place those kids could have been, some of them,
Oh, yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? But so do you want to go to schools? And so you want to talk about awareness? I mean, that's 100% of the key.
Yeah, I see myself more in the inspirational side of things, when this first came to me, or when I first surrendered, because surrender has been it's going to be my word for the rest of my life, because I keep surrendering into a lot of hard stuff, actually, that's come because of the book and around the book and all the things. And but I just lost my train of thought. I love that you do perfectly imperfect, because people want to see real, because
I mean, it is because where our minds are always,
I see squirrels, people. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Squirrel, squirrel, squirrel.
squirrel.
You
No, I was just asking about in the classroom
but
and like
where I see myself taking this message.
yes, the message.
Yeah, I know what I was gonna say. So when I first surrendered to all of this, I heard a woman, Amanda Francis. Do you know who Amanda Francis is?
Mm-mm.
She wrote a book called Rich as F. She's a manifesting queen. And she's the one that said everything on our heart was given to us by God. And it's our job every single day to know that we get to have those things, to feel that. And I was getting ready to drive to LA, and all of a sudden I saw Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, Lewis Howes. And I was like, oh, that's silly. And I was like, wait a minute. Everything on our heart was given to us by God. And so I've always seen myself on very big stages. Oprah Winfrey, Reese Witherspoon's book club, Joyce Meyer. Like I get to partner with these people, Brene Brown. So that's my goal, is just being an inspirational speaker from these large stages, to show people, you know what, I was in pain and shame, deep, deep pain and shame for 41 years. And now, because I have forgiven myself and I love myself and I know I deserve these things, I'm creating this beautiful life for myself. So that's really, really where I see this going. I'm happy to talk. To talk in schools is probably not something that I would feel comfortable with, because I'm not a therapist and I'm not qualified to be having these
Right,
conversations.
right.
Yeah, I make sure
But
that
like
I'm
you
very
could but like you
intentional.
could definitely talk to people about maybe like some signs to look for at home or
And that's in the book, and I could talk a little bit about that, but that makes me nervous to people putting their trust in me around their children. I don't have children, so it's a
right,
different ball game for me too. I would
right,
definitely go to colleges and things like that and speak there, because I think I wouldn't feel as responsible
right.
as I would directing somebody around their children and getting care for their children.
But I think, I mean, your message is one of hope and it's one of
Yeah.
healing and it's one of just life happens. I mean, you mentioned the one about the manifesting. I'm actually in the middle of reading Get Rich, Lucky Bitch.
Oh, okay. I love it.
Same concept, a great
Yes.
manifesting book. And um
Yes.
just, and it's the same thing. It would be just be God gave you everything you have. And that's always been my message. Everything you have is inside of you. And then life happens, beats it down, and you just got to get the tools to access it, to pull it out, to be able to live it. Because we weren't bored. I said, God didn't go by and go be like good, bad, happy, sad, good, bad, good. I mean, we were
Yeah.
all born joyous and happy and
Yeah.
perfect in our own world,
I
just like we are right now.
love manifesting. It is my favorite thing. I have this little morning dance that I do with God that is just magical.
You can do it for us?
Oh, well, it's just I wake up and immediately before, and I'm not gonna dance, but it's this fun little dance that we do together. But I before I even do anything, I'll put on some sort of, I have a couple different meditations that are automatically speaking as I'm waking up. And
Hmm.
then I'll do sometimes I'll do Esther Hicks, sometimes I'll do Regan Hillier. Like I'll listen to something else. And this morning, I listened to an Esther Hicks this morning that I got a glimpse of what it actually is, just to tap in and really get it. It was magical. I'll send it to you. It was
Okay.
really, really
Yes, because I
cool.
love that stuff. Absolutely
Yes.
love it. And just
And then
even
I get, oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
Then I just get quiet. I say, okay, God, because this is all new territory for me. I'm not an author, I'm not a speaker. I don't know what those people do. So I get really quiet and I meditate for a few minutes and I just say, okay, God, what do I have to offer the world today that I can bring forth? Or what do I get to do today to move this forward. And I've gotten really good at listening to my intuition, really
Yes.
good at that.
And super
So
important and super impressive that you do it humbly. Not how can I make this? How can I do this? How can I get on this? But what can I do in order to serve someone so that they can help me get
yeah, well, yeah, that's the only reason I'm doing this. Like,
there?
this
Yeah.
is not, this is not what I would have
Yeah.
chosen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Probably 20 years ago, you weren't like, I think I want to be on big stages and bare
Yeah, and
my
talk about
soul to
how I
everybody.
acted
And
out with other kids. That sounds awesome. Yeah.
so, well, that's awesome. So that's, I mean, it's exciting. It's fun. I love the story of hope. I love what you're saying. It's funny. Even I've actually had 3 recordings today, but my last one, I always say, give a words of wisdom. And she literally was like, surrender. I was like,
Mhm.
so when you said that, I was like, and that's really what it is, and she kind of had a very similar message, but I love it. So
I just got chills because if you can get to that place where you can do that, it's actually quite addictive.
yeah,
Because if you can do that, if you can surrender into it all, it's going to work out.
yeah,
You don't know how, which sucks. Like, I hate God's timing. I'm like, he and I fight a lot. I fight with God a lot.
yeah.
But if
I
you
think
can
he's
get
a
to
pretty
that,
good sense of humor.
I agree. I think the Holy Spirit, I don't know what you believe, but I believe the Holy Spirit is the funny one in the bunch. I don't know why. Yeah, surrender it's really hard, but if you can get to that place and you can go, all right, and just let it go, it's amazing how God will work it out.
Well, and it's just, you're carrying this burden for 40 years. You carry this burden of guilt and shame, and how nice to just be able to hand it over to somebody else to say, this is yours to take care of. Like, I'm
Yeah.
trusting you. I
Yep.
know, like when I went through Al-Anon and stuff like that, they was always, your higher power. Just no, like, don't lay your head down at night and worry, because it doesn't do you any good. You're not in control at the end of the day anyway. So control
Yeah.
the things you
Yep.
can control. I know right over my bed it says, give it to God and go to sleep.
Yes. Oh, that feels good too, huh?
Yeah.
Because we forget to do that, and then we go to bed with all of our worries and all the things that we're
Hmm.
thinking about. But oh, I love that. I'm going to put that next to my bed.
Yeah,
That's
it's right
great.
there, big, and a big
Yeah,
thing, like big. And then right next to my diffuser with my lavender. And the combination is really good.
love
Which he
it.
made that too. So that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I don't want to keep you too long, but great story and so much
Yeah.
hope and love in that. And if people want to talk to you, work with you, I know you said there's some resources. I'm going to put it all in the show notes, but what would be the direct first reach out?
Well, jilleschultz.com is my website, all my socials there. I'm just now creating a YouTube channel where I'm going to be pouring a lot into that. I'm excited about that. And that's also Jill Schultz. And one of the things that I found in my healing is that I healed much more quickly in community when you could talk about it in a group. And I do have a Facebook group called Living Unshamed. So
Okay.
if you want to join a community of other people who are dealing with similar things, please ask to join the Facebook group too.
Okay.
Living Unshamed.
Okay. And I will put that in the show notes too, because community is everything. I
Yeah.
actually just did a live, and I was like, I'm starting my new group coaching because I work with adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families, but it helps so much to hear the other stories and to see the hope and to just feed off each other and know that, like you said, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Definitely not alone. So I love it. So I will put all of those links in there, because I'm sure people there, like I said, there's millions of people out there, and you just don't know what people have been through, but people will definitely resonate with that for sure. And I like to ask all of my guests, please leave the listeners with some words of advice or words of wisdom or something from Jill Schultz.
Yeah. Well, it's actually from Neil Donald Walsh.
Okay.
Jill Schultz is coining, and it's life happens outside your comfort zone. So I always like to say, look at that one thing in your life that looks like it's the hardest thing that you'll never get past. Face it head on and say, you don't own me anymore, because life really is beautiful on the other side of all the healing and all the forgiveness and all of that.
That's that's nice. And I love your explanation of it, because you always just hear nothing exciting happens inside your comfort zone, and get out of your comfort zone and everything. But to put it in perspective is valuable. So thank you for that.
Thank you. It was lovely meeting you today.
Absolutely. You too. And I will definitely be getting your book and following all that. And I appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. And for all everybody out there listening, once again, another story of hope and healing. And this one, a good one, a really good one. Tune in next week. Bye-bye.